In one word, what does life mean to you?
Happiness.
Great. What is your biggest passion?
In business, I really enjoy now helping other investors or people invest in real estate. And when they get their first passive income and they send me a text, like Vinki, that really like brings so much power in my heart that I want to do it again. When it comes to my family and my friends and my loved ones, it's the time spent on unplanned afternoons and evenings over a coffee or tea or wine. So I enjoy
That's
that.
invaluable. That's invaluable. Those are the good memories. This is a Real Estate Vibe Show, and I'm your host, Vinki Loomba, commercial real estate investor. And today I have a really, really special guest, my good friend, Kunal Dewan. Welcome, Kunal, to the Real Estate Vibe Show.
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Vinki.
Of course, a little bit about Kunal. Kunal is an engineer by education, entrepreneur by choice, and real estate investor by passion. Oh my God, I love that simple bio. Awesome. So today we'll discuss the top 3 passive real estate investing myths busted. Wow, I love that title. So passive real estate investing myths busted. Before we get started, Kunal, I wanted to ask you if you can briefly share your background with me, who you are, and how did you get here?
Absolutely, Vinki. Those 10 words kind of summarize who I am, where I came from, and what I do right now. Engineer by education, entrepreneur by choice, and a real estate investor by passion. 11 words. I came first generation immigrant to this country almost 2 decades ago. Came for my engineering, my master's in engineering, civil and structural engineering. Did that and started a regular W-2 job. The immigrant challenges, broke as everybody. And I was able to come to this country. I was the first one in my entire family to actually sit on an airplane praying about coming international. And the way I was able to pursue a higher education in a number 1 country in the world is through my 100% scholarship. So that's how I got started. Did my engineering. Yeah, I was blessed and fortunate. Did my engineering, started working on tall buildings in Southern California, complex seismic analysis, and then moved on to healthcare projects, and then mixed use, and then apartment buildings. So that was the journey of actually designing and working in construction of buildings. And my career was doing great, even in the terms of Great Recession, but my personal net worth and balance sheet was not growing at all. And that's when I started looking into investing. So my first investment was a condo back then in the end of the first decade. Mm-hmm. And started getting that passive income, the paycheck after paying that mortgage and property taxes, the money coming in. Mm-hmm. That was fantastic. And that's when I got hooked to passive investing. But at the same time, $100,000 will only buy so much so fast. It's hard to save money when you have a W-2 job. So I started looking into extra income. So started my first business in the end of the first decade with $2,500. Mm-hmm. And then over the next 5 to 7 years, took that to a multiple 7-figure, multi-unit business, quit my W-2. And that was the realization of entrepreneurship. So that's the entrepreneur by choice. And then while I was doing this, I was still getting that paycheck from the first investment, started scaling up the real estate investments in residential sector in Southern California, Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, and duplex, then triplex, then fourplex, then small apartment multifamily. And then just a few years ago, started scaling up to real estate syndications. So I realized my passion as I was going through this entrepreneurial journey, and then I combined both the business and the investing, and hence the Liberty Capitalist was born. And here I am doing full-time real estate investing and making that impact for other W-2 and other business owners of investing in real estate passively.
Wow, I love that trajectory. And today, as you gave me the topic that we're going to be talking about the passive real estate myths, and we're going to be nailing down the top three of them. So, what are some of the misconceptions about passive investing? And how do they differ from the active investing? Because you were passive, so now you're active. So you have played both roles.
Correct. And I'm actually passive today also. I still invest with other people like yourself, where there is expertise and they take the lead and I'm just passively investing the money. So before I answer your question though, I have come through the journey of being a landlord of one property, then landlord for multiple properties. And then I have gone through the challenges of the tenants and the toilets and the termites and all that wonderful stuff. I've made a lot of mistakes as well of my own money. I've been burnt a lot because I didn't know any better 10 years ago. So now that when you scale up, the challenges don't go away. They also scale up as well. So what I can see as a passive investor versus what somebody else sees as a passive investor who have never done an investing and they're truly just putting their trust on the sponsor are day and night scenarios. So today we're going to talk about the top three myths of passive investing. My vision is coming from that mistakes and scars of investing from past 15 years.
Awesome. You know what? I have heard this terminology, market efficiency. People talk about that a lot when you're passively investing. So I wanted to bring that into before we dig deep in the myth, So how does that market efficiency plays a role in passive investing, or how would you define that?
Beautiful. I mean, that's probably, it kind of ties to the first myth that I want to share with you today. So let's start with the first myth. The first myth is people talk about, if I buy in a great market, a gateway market, a fancy market, everything else will fall in place. Or if I have a sponsor who can talk well, speak well, everything will just happen after because the market is great, the data is great. Well, not really. So what they really need to look at, the passive investor need to look at, is the property manager. Not enough weight is placed on property management. We do our due diligence on the market, the population growth, the income growth, the demographics. We talk about the due diligence on our sponsor. But what about the property manager? The actual leasing agent who's going to sell the product at the market rent, who's going to capture that rent gap in your property, who's going to make the improvements on the property, the maintenance tech, the contractor. So it kind of ties with the market efficiency that you're talking about is if the PM, the property manager, has a very small footprint in that market and they are scaling with you, well, they are going through the learning curve. That's a no-no. That's a no-no. So if you have a large property, let's say a 300 unit building in a market, what's the track record of property manager for building of that size? What are the challenges they have faced in their past projects, making capex improvements of property in that size in that market or even sub-market? How is their payroll looking? Right now, labor market is really tight. It's hard to find good people and then retain them. So what's the impact of their company culture on your property? These are very soft and untangible, the non-tangible items that will create tangible impact on your property. So when we talk about market efficiency, the property manager plays a big role in the market efficiency. If I have 1,000 doors in a market and I have one PM managing all my 1,000 doors, my investments will be very efficient because my PM has a track record. Hopefully the culture is great. It's keeping the staff, and the staff is growing with them. The regionals are growing with them. The sales agents are growing with the company, with you from 1,000 to 2,000 door. So that's the top myth. With my partners right now, we are a vertically integrated firm. We know what's going on in the life of our
Mm-hmm.
regional, because there
Mm-hmm.
is a culture.
Mm-hmm.
The maintenance tech comes over to the house and sometimes have coffee because there is a bond. So that bond really brings the commitment, and commitment brings productivity, and productivity brings efficiency when you're scaling your real estate
I
investment.
like that. But as a passive investor, this is a question for you. So, passive investor is trying to bet the sponsor. You're betting on a jockey, not the horse, because bet has to be on the jockey, and jockey has to be well trained to take the horse. And horse in our scenario is the property by itself in whatever market. So, as a passive investor, I'm betting the sponsor, not knowing much about the property manager or who the property management company is going to be aligned with this particular sponsor. How would you go about that being a passive investor? Or do you trust your sponsor that they are making the right decision with the right property management company if they don't have it in house?
Absolutely. So in that analogy, the jockey and the horse, the way I visualize it, Vinky, the property manager is the caretaker of that horse.
Mm-hmm.
What's that caretaker feeding the horse? Exercising or health, all that. That's the caretaker. So a lot of a lot of onus, the responsibility still lies on the sponsor picking the right caretaker for the horse, which is picking the right property management company for the horse. And as a passive investor, there should be direct questions to the sponsor about the property management company. Just the way a passive investor asks the sponsor, can you share your track record? Can you share some referrals? Can you share some challenges? All of that questions must be targeted to a property management company as well. So, Mr. Sponsor, can you share your experience working with this property manager? Can you share some challenges that this property management company is facing? How is the reporting looking like from the property management company to you? How often would you guys meet? What are your expectations of this property manager? And how would you overcome those challenges? We can talk about that for the next 30 minutes just on this topic. But
Mm-hmm.
what I want to bring to the limelight for all the passive investors out there is don't stop your DD on the sponsor. Dig deeper when it comes to the property manager as well.
Awesome. So this is the myth number one, right? The market efficiency. What is the second myth?
Second myth might ruffle some feathers, and that is passive investor looks at the data. It's actually selective data. U-Haul shows so many people moving in, and there's a population growth, there's income growth, there's demographics, there is employers moving, all that beautiful, fancy stuff at a macro level, which is great. Don't take me wrong. It's very important. But at the same time, how does this relate to your neighborhoods, to your ultra local market? So there's a sponsor, then there's a market, and then there's the data. How does all this relate to at a very extremely local micro level? Because we know real estate is not local. Real estate is ultra local.
Mm-hmm. It
We
is.
know we live in Southern California, Vinky, and we know the property value on this side of the street and the property value on the other side of the street is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
There are properties on this side of the street where people want to live and there's a waiting list, and people property on this side have a rent drop and nobody wants to go there, whatever the reason might be. So macro data is good. Sponsors, marketing in that micro data is great, but ask the questions about micro level. So
Mm-hmm.
what I do is I draw on maps half-mile radius, 1 mile radius, 3 mile radius, 5
5 miles.
mile radius, and then 10. I mean, I go deep. Then each
Mm-hmm.
of those radius, I collect the population and I collect the average income and the median income. All this data is available, easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do my own research when it comes to, okay, this is my income, and I backtrack it when it comes to the rent growth or when it comes to the actual the gap in the rent. So don't just rely on the reports on the CoStar or what the broker gives you or the free websites give you, but rather dig deeper and then take this and compare this to the business plan that the sponsor is creating. It's a little bit of work, but
it's not a little bit of work, it's a lot of work. And then people, especially being a passive investor, they might not be in that particular market. And then if the sponsor is providing you with the data within the 1 mile radius, and if you can quickly get the data from somewhere, sometimes you just rely on that versus, going in there yourself and researching, which is going to take hours and hours or maybe days to figure out what is right, what is wrong, because you are not in that market. Let's say you're in California, for example, and you're trying to invest in Texas. How much you know about the Texas market, especially Houston? Houston has a similar scenario. Like one block differs from other block. When I was in Houston earlier this year, I was like surprised to see that. Like, wow, there's a dramatic difference in properties, like a block away from each other. So it's very super hard being on the passive side for myself to figure out whether it's a good deal or not, unless, I trust the sponsor that the data is being relayed to me is accurate. And then I know a little bit some of the tools that I can go online and check the data, okay, to validate it. But if I have to do all the research from the scratch, it's super hard.
For sure. So let me clarify. This research is not a responsibility of the passive investor. Passive investor needs to ask this question. The responsibility lies on the sponsor. Right? I know, Vinki, you are so tricky when it comes to data. I mean, your questions are so deep. We have been talking for like so many years, and we know that the depth we have in our conversation when it comes to data and underwriting, right? We just tear this apart. The passive investor must ask these questions to the sponsor. Okay, great. The OM and the PPM shows $80,000 income in a 5 mile radius. Can you please share with me the income in a half mile radius or a 1 mile radius and 3 mile radius? This conversation, the myths about passive investing, is to give passive investor tools to go back to the sponsor, come back to me, come back to you, share this data with me so I can invest my 100,000 with you and sleep peacefully, so that you have done what you were supposed to do before you created this marketing pitch of data.
That's true. No, I like that. I mean, it's always all the information. The more information you have, it's better for you to make more informed decision. And that's what we do, whatever deals we bring to our passive investors, or whatever deals we are investing in as a passive investors ourselves, we just do our due diligence, our part. So make sure that we are getting the ROI that whatever we're looking for. So let's move on to our myths number 3, because I have tons of questions for you, but I wanted to go through all the myths before. So go ahead, tell me about the third myth.
Number 3, and this is again very controversial, and someone who has been in business, especially in construction business and rental market business, will understand this. It's called too much value add.
I know.
Every rental market has a cap. Okay, that cap has a lot of factors. That depends on the income, that depends on the growth, the employer, all the things that we already know, right? So, but after a certain point, there's only so much improvements you can make on the property and create an increase in rent. What I mean by that is this: if you plot a graph where there is, let's say, a traditional property, like when I say traditional, like a classic unit, you say, you know what, I'm going to change the flooring. And there you go. Boom, $60 a month extra. Makes sense. And hey, I'm going to change the countertop in the kitchen, another $40 a month. I'm going to change the recessed lighting, another $20, whatever that number is, depending on the market, right? And you plot a graph where amount spent and the return received. The return on the first, let's say $5,000 will be very high. So the slope of the graph will be very high. But as you keep on spending money on the property, interior or exterior, depending on that market, that sub-market, that graph is going to plateau out. So in other words, there will be a point after 10,000, 12,000, 50, whatever that property in the market is. You're not going to get $80 for every $5,000 spend, right? You might get $5 or $10. So the question that the passive investor must ask the sponsor is, in your business plan, you are doing all this capex improvement and you're spending all this money, interior or exterior, and you're expecting this much rent growth over this period of time, right? That's the classic value add. How does that compare to the local market and the local rent in an as is scenario? I have a property of myself where the rental income on a simple make ready is $1,250. So the existing rent is $900 something. We turn the unit, the carpet painted, simple, less than $3,000 expense, and we go from 900 something to 1,250. That's a big jump, right? Now, if we go over, so now we put some laminate flooring, we put some beautiful countertops and kitchen cabinet, whatever that is. Let's say a 10 grand expense. We get 150 extra. So I ask myself, $3,000, actually less than $3,000 make ready, and almost $300 bump, or 10,000 plus and 150 bump. It doesn't make sense, right? So I am not, my graph is slowly plateauing after that 1,250, right? And then if I, let's say, do platinum and then I sell it and some other buyer comes in, I am going to add a value to this property by, changing the faucets or whatever that is, Wi-Fi package, this, that. How much can you really go? Can you take it to 1,500, 1,600? I don't think so. I mean, you can, but you will pay in the economic vacancy. So that's a too much value add I'm talking about. So in a nutshell, passive investors should look at the business plan, look at the existing market rent for the correct comps, and go back to the sponsor and ask these questions about how much value add is creating, how much rental growth in this product.
And that's true. I agree with you 100% because each market sports the value add up to certain level, and also it depends upon the class of the property that you're getting. A, B, and C. You cannot really put the upgrades of class A into class C because market won't support it. The class of the property won't support it. So that's going to be a waste of effort, time, and money. So all those things you have to keep in mind as a sponsor when you are putting the deal together or whenever you're bringing it to your investors as well, And plus, you have to be in a good position to explain where you're coming from and how you're really adding value. Because by the end of the day, everybody's looking for some good ROI, right? If you're not getting the good return on your investment, it's a waste of effort on everybody's part. So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions after all these myths, because I know the passive investing is a really good thing. But a lot of people think, when I'm investing passively, I just sacrifice a control over the deal. I don't want it to passive invest with anybody. I just want it to be on the active side. So I wanted to hear your take on that. What would you recommend? Being an active investor to begin with, or just start investing passively first, get the hang of it, and then change rules like you did or I did?
Wow, that's a very wide question because there is no single answer that will apply to all. So I'll try to answer from one segment, but understand there are multiple layers to this. My kids are very young. I have a 6-year-old, I have a 2-year-old. No amount of money is worth losing this time that I have with them right now, right? That's me. I know a couple of people who still work, 16, 18 hours a day at their job, and they have young kids and they just eat dinner together. Compare. So what is the value of that money if you can be there with your child
with your
at
family.
swimming practice? Right now, every day I go take my child to swimming practice. That's an hour and a half ordeal. Then we also go for soccer. Then we play in the park. There's a value in there, right? Active real estate investing means you are doing all the work at the price of something, right? Versus passive investing. Let's say if you have a job or if you have a business, whatever that is, you put your money to work And you do your own thing, 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours. So you have time left. So when you ask me a question, what's better, active or passive? Well, it just depends on the person, their personal life, how much they value the time, their money goals, their ambitions, their long-term goals. I do want to say that there's something called compounding effect. Everybody learned this in the third grade math, but very few actually practice their life. And the compounding effect is more amplified in passive investing than in active investing. How is that? Let's say if somebody has a tech job. Let's say they live where you live in San Francisco, or they have a business where they have employees working and they leverage. They keep on doing this, but every year they can invest 100,000, 200,000, whatever their capacity is, in a passive investment every year, and keep on compounding. So the money keeps on churning from their business or job. Money keeps on churning from their cash flowing assets, right? And they're not putting any time. And they're getting tax advantages, which is this. So they're saving more, invest more, save more, invest more, save more, invest more, keep on doing that. And yet they have the time to do what they want to do.
That's true.
Right? How do you, and if you can think about this scenario for 10 years, the results are far more than the time value that you have, the price that you pay from losing their loved one. So every person should do this math. If money plays a really big role, yeah, of course, come to active investing. The money is great, but it comes with the price. So that's why I passive invest as well.
Me too.
We both align. No amount of money in active investing is worth it. And that's why passive invest. So I hope that answers to the question, but there are multiple layers in this question.
That's true. I think you put it very well, because the thing is, there's an intrinsic value of everything, whatever you're trying to do. And then family always come first. If you ask anybody what you're passionate about, the first thing always going to be family. I'm passionate about my family, but how much time do you spend with your family? That's the next question. A lot of times people get so carried away with their work, with their job, or making money or whatever, they regret later on. Yeah. So, but here you have a choice, with passive investing. So I'm going to ask you to share one successful passive investing example with me.
My own?
Yeah, sure. Or anybody else.
I think it's probably fair if I share my own, because then I can share my feelings as well. My first passive investment with somebody else, and I have never met them, Vinki, in person. Okay, this was during the COVID time. Even if I wanted to meet them, I cannot meet them. And this was all electronic, like Zoom over the screen. I got to know that person for good 2 months or 3 months. I was talking to them every other week. Now, I could have invested a whole lot more at that time, but I chose to invest small because you have that risk, right? But once you get to know that person and I understand their opinion about family, opinion about business, opinion about money, how they perceive their own money is what I really wanted to capture. And once I got that, I felt comfortable that my money with this person will be also taken care of, because this person takes care of his own money in a certain way, the priorities, the business sense. So the success story is more of the journey that I went through that person, and not an investment, because investment will perform if the person performs. So my success is the partnership, that journey of 3 months, understanding the person.
I like that. I really, really like that, because I just feel like experience is more important than anything else. When you're trying to invest or trying to do something, you're creating experience. And experience is something that you haven't experienced before, or it's not part of your knowledge base. It's something new, right? If the experience is good, you're going to do it over and over again. That's what you just shared. I love that. Thank you. So I think we're out of time. Can you share one golden nugget with my audience beside whatever you shared?
One golden nugget is stick to your buy box, stick to your investment thesis, stick to your financial goals, stick to your financial plans. Talk to as many sponsors as you can. If somebody talks to me and you versus talks to, let's say, John or Steve, I'm just making up names,
Mhm.
they will get the perspective of each person and continue talking to them, continue following them, continue reading about them, their perspective. And you will find the vehicle where you will feel safe with that sponsor with your first 100,000 or with down the line, your first million.
Great. Awesome. So this brings us to our rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You're going to answer in one word or one sentence only. Are you ready?
Oh boy, let's do it.
All right. The first question is, what is one of the most important things that you have learned in your life? And how did it change your life after learning it?
There's nothing more valuable than time. And I used to burn time at my job and my first business, at my second business. When my first child was born, it totally changed my perspective. So no amount of money is worth the time that you can spend with loving things, what you want to do, be it your family, be it your passions.
Oh, I love that. What is one best book that you have read and recommend to my audience?
If you are a business owner, I strongly suggest starting with E-Myth. It's a really old book, E-Myth and E-Myth Revisited. And if you are a young parent and you have kids and it's about parenting, it talks about how to talk to kids so they listen and how to listen so they can talk. Wonderful book. And you can actually apply this parenting book if you have a team, and you can apply the principles from this book to your business team as well.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. It's all about listening, how carefully you're listening and asking the right questions. I love that. In one word, what does life mean to you?
Happiness.
Great. What is your biggest passion?
In business, I really enjoy now helping other investors or people invest in real estate. And when they get their first passive income and they send me a text, like, Vinki, that really brings so much power in my heart that I want to do it again. When it comes to my family and my friends and my loved ones, it's the time spent on unplanned afternoons and evenings over a coffee or tea or wine. So I enjoy
That's
that.
invaluable. That's invaluable. Those are the good memories.
Yeah.
That's the good experience that we're creating for ourselves. Love that. If you could turn back in time and talk to your younger self, what would that be and why?
I would tell myself, don't be scared. When I was at my job, I was an immigrant. So there was a fear of immigration status, and then there was fear of losing the job, fear of losing the money, fear. I was filled with fear, right? I was ambitious, but my actions were not because that I want to grow fast, but rather I don't want to lose fast or lose it, right? So it was fear driven. Once I made the shift and started believing in myself, and that was my first investment and the business journey, I started seeing things in a very different way. So don't fear.
That's true. I love that. I mean, been there, done that kind of thing, for everybody,
Yeah.
because we complicate our lives. Life is very simple. It's a smooth sailing if you just trust the process and keep on walking. So how can people reach out to you, Kunal?
The best way to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. My full name, Kunal Dewan, on LinkedIn.
Kunal, oh my God, that was really, really good conversation today. I really enjoyed the show with you today.
It's a pleasure, Vinki. Always great chatting with you. You have this power of asking great questions. So